playbook built for one merger or let's say acquisition works out for every new brands that you keep acquiring?
There's definitely a playbook. We've done this a couple times now, like literally just last year, 3 times. It's a
What should e-commerce teams start preparing for now for 2026?
I think specific, like more tactically, AI generative search.
If you had to start again, what would you do differently?
Maybe not go into retail.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Roaring Ladies of E-commerce 12th chapter of this AMA series. Today we have Sabrina with us. She heads product and e-commerce at Heavenly Brands, and we are going to learn a lot today. This is going to be our last session of the year. So it's a little bit emotional for us because this has been our very first year when we launched this series. And I was just speaking with Sabrina on this, that it was an absolute blast in terms of, so many of you joined us in this journey for this entire 12 months, and we are going to carry this forward with even more energy next year onwards. But yes, this is our last session before the holiday season. Today, we are going to learn lots from Sabrina. So let's get started. A very, very warm welcome, Sabrina, to our Roaring Ladies of E-commerce last AMA of 2025. We are super, super excited to have you. Would love to hear in your own words little bit about your background and journey.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Sabrina. I am Dallas-based. I lead, as Sonakshi mentioned, the product and e-commerce for Havenly Brands. We currently are a house of 6 brands. It's Havenly Interior Define, Burrow, The Citizenry, St. Frank, and the inside. And I literally counting on my fingers to make sure I got them all. Um, I've been in retail literally my entire life. And worked at a variety of different startups. I actually was at the Citizenry leading e-commerce there, and we were part of one of the brands that was acquired by Havenly last year. And I've been in the e-commerce space for nearly 10 years now. And before that, I was actually just on the other side of the house in merchandising and planning and analytics. So just sort of seen every kind of facet of the business, which has been really.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. And Sabrina was too modest while introducing herself. She has massive experience running a multi brand D2C strategy, and that is what we are going to cover in today's session. It's all about the question that you guys have asked while registering for this session. So we'll go by that one by one. But even beyond that, guys, if you have any questions or things that are unanswered in your mind, feel free to put that on Slack channel. Sabrina is part of Slack, so she'll be more than happy to answer them. So let's begin. So first question to you, Sabrina, if you can cover around what brings your passion towards e-commerce? Like, why did you choose e-commerce as your choice of career?
Yeah, I think it's something around like weaving technology with storytelling, if that makes sense. And I really enjoy both the technology side of it and building like unique and interesting things for the customer journey, but really weaving in that storytelling for each brand. I think oftentimes on the e-commerce side, we can get very like dialed in on KPIs and metrics and performance, but brand is a really important element to that as well. And I think e-commerce blends both nicely. And then it's also just, it's kind of fun. It's digital. You can change things really quickly. You can get reads really quickly. You can um, get those reads and either roll, like, be like, oops, that didn't go well, like roll things back, or push them forward and take those learnings and like roll them into new things. And you can do that in a much more expedited way than on the store side. So I have been in retail on the store side, and it's very hard to like steer that ship in a different direction very quickly, especially when you think about like all the store staff and the training, where on the e-commerce side, you can very quickly pivot, which keeps it like always fresh and exciting.
Absolutely. I agree to that point. E-commerce is those rare professions where you get to mix both creativity and math and analytical mind under one place, and you see the results very quickly. It's fast to iterate. Thanks for sharing that, Sabrina. So here goes our question number one from the audience. What's the biggest mistake brands make when acquiring or merging other brands? And you have seen it firsthand while seeing that
Yeah.
transition from Citizenry to the Heavenly
Mhm.
Brand Group. So tell us a bit about.
Yeah. I've been through multiple acquisitions, both on the being acquired and acquiring side. And I think it's really centered around not leaning in and asking why. Like it's very quick to be like, we need to align processes and workflows and systems and things like that. And even if even if you acquire a brand and you're like, this makes whatever's happening here doesn't make sense to me, we should operationalize it for scale because that's what we know. It always benefits you to stop and be like, why is it built this way? Because learned a lot of lessons along the way around like, oh, there was actually a reason. And so we like uprooted something, moved it, and then whether that's a couple weeks or a month or two later, like some chain of command or system starts falling apart, like very far downstream that we weren't aware about. And then you suddenly you like just moved a thing and now you have tech debt because you didn't know about some like very specific nuance. So like asking, even if you're like, it doesn't make sense or we shouldn't be doing that, you should still just ask the questions like, why are we doing it? Tell me more about like why that thing, like why you think it's important. Because maybe there's just a different solution for it altogether. But when you just don't capture it, suddenly that thing becomes like a big fire when it finally comes to a head. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake um, is just that. You're just so quick to move before you know there's like a transition of team members and things like that, and you just need to get that information before you lose it.
Yeah, makes sense, Sabrina. And do you think like a playbook built for one merger or let's say, acquisition works out for every new brands that you keep acquiring, or it's like a little bit tweak that's required in the playbook once you go around acquiring new brands?
There there are some tweaks. There's definitely a playbook. We've done this a couple times now, like literally just last year, 3 times. And so there is a playbook that we follow. We're usually really quick to like bring over data and merge that into our data system. So we have like one view. It's when we talk about a metric, it means the same thing everywhere now. And those sorts of things. CX gets migrated pretty quickly, some things like that. And then everything else is a little bit I'll say squishier. We start to look across the tech stack and like what's going on and contract dates and things like that, and then start trying to like build out the playbook. We know everything will need to be streamlined eventually, but like some things maybe don't need to for a year or maybe even more. Like if it's fine and it makes sense for that brand, we may just parking lot that for later, where for a different brand would be like we need to move this immediately because all the brands are they are different in like specific ways, and so it's not as cookie cutter and one size fits all, but there are definitely from like an operational perspective a lot of things that are pretty like pick up rinse and repeat.
Yeah, absolutely, Sabrina. And like you said, every brand is different. Every brand has its own flavor. And I see the second question is actually a follow-up to that. So, how do you keep brand identity strong while running shared tech and teams?
Yeah, I my personal take on that is you need some teams, it makes a ton of sense to have them operate across all brands and scale. That is how you get leverage and scale from these acquisitions. But I do feel pretty strongly that from like a site merchandising perspective and like a brand creative team perspective, you do need dedicated brand owners who are sort of the keepers of ensuring that the things that we do and say and the imagery that we use is like on brand. Um, and really know that customer really well and like what matters to them, and so they can kind of be like the protectors of that, because it is really easy, um, as you try to like scale and operationalize everything, to lose some of those elements. Like a great example is like on the citizenry side, like we used to have a lot of like branded packaging and things like that, and operationally it's easier to streamline and like kind of remove some of those things because then you can like order boxes for like all your brands, they should be the same. But you lose some of these brand touch points. So you really do need someone, to like fight for those special moments that make each brand unique. And keep that lens, because once you pull someone up and they're just in charge of everything, it's too much for one person to like keep track of and also go like fight all those just little battles about like keeping those brand voices like intact and things like that.
Got it. Got it. Absolutely makes sense, Sabrina. Moving on to our third question. How do you balance acquisition versus retention across the multiple brands that you own today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think for us specifically, we are a mix of like pure furniture, mostly furniture, versus like some like home decor and accent brands. And acquisition and retention are different. I think like what you'll probably hear is a theme of like some things can be the same and other things will always have to be different. And this is definitely one of them where for like our pure furniture brands, we know that like retention and repeat business is low. Like how many sectionals do you need in a house? Maybe you move every couple years, or you like size up your house and need something larger. And then for our home goods and decor brands, we can see customers shopping quite frequently with us, and so those strategies are different. I think what is really fun and interesting about Havenly Brands is we can say like, hey, on Interior Define, you purchased a sofa. If we know that you also signed up for email across our other brands, or even within our Interior Define brands, we could be like, hey, we have a family of brands, and maybe you need some pillows for that sofa that you just ordered, and can surface up cross-brand content in our marketing to those customers. And so like retention for us looks a little different. Like, can we keep them in our family of brands and make another purchase somewhere else when the time is right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is super interesting, and I'm pretty sure you must have your own set of analytics where cross-brand revenue becomes a very important channel for you guys.
It
Absolutely.
does, and we track it. And what's in we also have a report that like kind of tells us like if you bought with like brand A, like what percentage of customers will then shop at another brand. And so it's interesting to see some of the overlaps of like where customers tend to like stay. And sometimes it's surprising, like you wouldn't have thought that two brands would have as much overlap as they do, and that they do. And so I think get like again like that is the first thing that we move over, and that is one of the first things we look at is like how much like in a brand acquisition you hope to have like acquired some new customers as well. And it's like how much overlap and like how much sort of like net new customers do we have that we can start to bring into the fold of all of our brand ecosystems or portfolio.
Got it. And Sabrina, I was just wondering, even does your CX team, the brand language they use while interacting with your customers or shoppers, like, is there a tonality difference between six brands, or it's like a backend ops and the way they speak is very similar across these brands?
Operationally, it's very similar. We do have dedicated brand specific teams that handle some of the more like higher context reach out from customers. And they're brand specific because they do speak in the brand voice a little bit more, but I think it's more about product knowledge,
Yeah.
and how you like take a customer on that journey. So like, I'll use it at the citizenry again, but it's a high price point. Everything is artisanally made. And so we're getting questions about sustainability and like certifications and things like that, that they're very specific. So we have a dedicated team who knows those answers or knows where to go find them. And those customers require a little bit more hand holding. And so that team is prepared to kind of spend the time, where some of our other brands a little bit more transactional and like a lot more like Wismo or, order issues and things like that. And so they're built in a way to like kind of like go through those quickly and get like answers back to customers in a different way.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense, Sabrina. Next question. What should e-commerce teams start preparing for now for 2026?
Gosh, so many things. Um, I mean, I'll say it, it's AI. Like we haven't already started doing all the things to prepare ourselves for this like just new boom, kind of similar to like the dot-com boom around the late 90s, then we're behind. I think specific, like more tactically, um, AI generative search, which we're calling geo. We had to draw a line in the sand and pick a term, and that's there's several floating around right now. So preparing for that, like we track um, AI search traffic specifically as we try to like improve that because that search is different than the SEO that we've all known and kind of been beaten into us for our
Yeah.
careers. And I think that's a really big one. And then outside of that, I think vibe coding, whether that's with Cursor or Lovable or something like that. I think the opportunity in the e-commerce space. Um, I have worked with only contract engineers, one single in-house engineer. We now have a team of engineers. There's always more things that you want to do than you will have like engineering resources to execute on. And with the introduction of vibe coding, almost anyone can be a product tech person or an engineer and get a pretty good amount of the way there in building new features, or even if it's like a test concept that you then need to hand over to an engineer to polish. I think it really opens the door to accelerate how we evolve our websites and how we connect things in our stack. And I think that's going to be super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hearing this new position upcoming in e-commerce, which is, like e-commerce agent engineering, and their job is to go through the entire e-commerce stack and automate the parts of business using generative AI as much possible. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing
We
that.
recently did a hackathon. It kind of geared around that, like with AI as the theme. And we're like, if there's a thing that you've always wished that one of our sites had, like, hey, go pitch the idea and see if anyone sign up for it. Or like, there's just always these pain points that you're like, what, like one of these days when I have like free time, which is never, like, I want to automate this process because it's really annoying and manual. And so we took like a solid week to go try to like attack some of those things and like automate some of these
Yeah.
processes that for forever have just involved a human having to kind of do like a repetitive thing to like push products to the side or updates. So it was fun.
Right. Amazing. When did you guys do this? This quarter or the last one?
Last week, like literally
Last
last
week.
week.
Just before
we
the
were
holiday.
like we were like Cyber Black Friday, Cyber Monday promos are done. We're dark. We're like, let's take a week to do this before everyone kind of like goes on their like holiday breaks and things like that. Yeah, we just did
Amazing.
it.
It's actually a beautiful takeaway for all of us here. It's a great way to build out 2026 roadmap.
Yeah, it is.
Amazing. Moving on to next. So, if we can talk a little bit about how is Heavenly using AI today across products, CX, or e-commerce operations, though you already covered bits of it, but would love
Yeah.
to understand something that we have tried out already.
Yeah, I think on the CX side, beyond your standard chatbot, which I like we've had for a while and I think lots of brands have adopted, we added an AI tool that plugs into it that has like really helped. I think where AI chatbots do well is they can like answer like specific questions or like help you start a return, things like that. And this AI actually scrubs, you can connect it to a variety of things. We have it connected, like obviously to our site, to our ERP, to like our, we use customer, so it's connected to customer as well. And it's improved the shopping experience. So if a customer has a question about a product that might not be readily available online, it will go scrape everything that it's connected to and go find that answer in a much more efficient way than a CX agent would be able to go do it. Certainly faster. And so I think that's moved our sort of like customer support and like how we sell on the site forward quite a bit for the brands that have it. It's not on all of our brands yet, but probably will be by the end of 2026. And then from a product and e-commerce perspective, like I personally use it as just a thought partner. Like it like my chat and Claude know a lot about our stack, and I'm like, I want to do X. Tell me which ways I can do it, and I'll go pick one. To help me build again, like to build things. I mentioned it kind of can turn anybody into an engineer. My engineers might feel differently about that. They definitely don't want to inherit my code, but to like get a good way of the way there or to help solve problems in different ways. And so we're using it a lot for that. And we've just started a lot of work around automating things on the e-commerce side for like product launches, promo launches, and things like that. So we haven't released any of it. It's kind of was like born of the hackathon last week. But really great progress made from it. And we're like, this could be usable with a little bit more time. And looking for ways that we can bring like our creative and marketing teams into that so it like holistically can just all exist there and take the load off of those teams as well.
Amazing. That is so, so beautiful way of, approaching this problem statement. But yeah, before we move on to our rapid fire, the last question from audience is, how do you balance competing priorities for all the portfolio brands? Is there one or two you invest more time, budget, and resources into? Or if there is any favorite brand of yours which you feel that like your gut says that I invest my more time here, it's gonna yield better ROI.
Yeah, there are most certainly. Not all brands are created equal under our portfolio. Specifically because they range in revenue pretty substantially. And so that is the biggest challenge that we probably have as an organization is there will always be more priorities and more asks and more things that need to be done than time or people to do them. And so impact is how we measure things. And so sometimes that's impact to the total business. It can also be impact to that specific brand. Like it could meaningfully, in like a 2 week sprint, move a brand forward, even if it's a smaller one versus we spent that time doing other things. Like what is the impact that we'll see from it? So we're often weighing that in a couple different ways. But we do have two brands that get more time and resources invested in them. What's interesting about our brands are like some are 100% made to order, so it's like all sort of drop ship special order. But we do have brands that are inventory carrying as well, and those actually require more hands-on time. Cross categories with inventory means that you're gonna like we've been featuring X and now that's sold out, and so now you have to like pivot on the site and focus on something different, remerge your PLPs, things like that. And so they just by nature of the complexion of inventory and category assortment take more time. And so they get a little bit more time. Interestingly, like one of our biggest brands, like fully like mostly automated, it like runs and we're like, cool, just don't poke it. It's probably fine. And so where you think we would spend all of our time and resources on our biggest brand is not necessarily the case, unless something breaks, and then it's definitely all hands on deck. But fortunately, that doesn't happen too often. And so, yeah, we're trying to juggle that. Sometimes actually, like operational projects end up being the big ones. So we did a platform migration last year, which took a lot of time, but significantly reduced our total cost of ownership. And so sometimes the impact's not revenue driving, but that was a pretty big impact to our bottom line and meaningful. And so
Yeah,
that's where we put the work.
absolutely. In the end, it's about unit economics. Absolutely.
Always.
Thanks, Sabrina. We'll
Yeah,
move to the rapid fire round where we are going to throw up some quick questions and would love to understand your thought process. So,
sure.
so, starting that, the worst advice you still hear in e-commerce.
Gosh, it's probably something along the lines of like you should do XYZ thing because that worked for some other brand or brand that you work like it worked for me at my last brand. It should work here, just because customers are different, shopping behavior is different, and what worked for us last year might not work for us next year, right? Even within the same brand. So I think that's the worst advice.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to start again, what would you do differently?
Maybe not go into retail. I have a long running joke that everything I love about like retail as an industry, um, it's fun, it's always changing and exciting, is like also the things that like I hate about it. I'm like questioning my life choices. Um, so partially true, also a joke. I love what I do. I don't know if I would change anything. I'm kind of a believer of like I'm excited about the work I'm doing and clearly what the things that I've done led me here and pretty pleased with that. So
Amazing,
I'd
amazing.
buy Bitcoin like a decade ago.
What surprised you most after scaling multiple brands?
It sometimes doesn't get easier. Like you think you've done it and you're like, cool, like we'll just do it again. And it's not because every brand has like specific things that make it difficult and that you will have not encountered with previous ones. And then I think the other one, like I'll say for my team specifically, like the innovation that comes from those problems and like the willingness to like really dive in is has surprised me that even though when things have gotten really challenging and hard with really tight deadlines, I'm always like pleasantly surprised with my team's like willingness to jump in and tackle so, like big hairy monster projects.
Amazing. So the last rapid fire question for you, Sabrina, is what's the first AI workflow that you are going to automate when you enter 2026?
First workflow. I think we're very close, so I hope it's the first one because we run a lot of promotions. Is a automated way to push promotions live from like a single touch point. Sure many people on this call familiar, right? You update the homepage, there's banners, there's recovery banners, there's all sorts of touch points across the site that need to get touched. And so the hope is one single page where you can put input everything and it will just go put that information where it needs to go. Um, so it seems simple, but like we're still in the like kind of middle stages of consolidating our tech stack, so it's different for every brand. And so it makes it really difficult for site merchandisers to like work across brands. So if we could just have like one way to like do that, I think we would make their lives much easier. They'd be much happier. So I'm hopeful that that's where we'll be.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sabrina, for that. Now, my most favorite part of this session is one piece of advice that you would like to give all of us here, these aspiring women entrepreneurs, lead them. Any small piece of advice, Sabrina.
Oh man. Um, but one that I find myself telling other people all the time, is to not assume intent of others. It's kind of can like run the gamut of like work, personal, things like that. And I think I said at the beginning, but it's like always to like ask more questions before you assume intent of other people. Um, will save, at least for me, it saves myself a lot of like mental anguish and fatigue of thinking about those things, and forces you into like a direct conversation where more productive things can come out of, would be my advice. And that could be used across many different applications. So I actually see someone on the call who used to be on my team, and she's probably like rolling her eyes like, oh God, she said this all the time. But that would be my advice that I would give to others, is you think about things before you react, is to just ask more questions and not assume intent, regardless of what that is.
Absolutely. This is such a beautiful advice. And before starting this company, so I'm the founder of Manifest, Sabrina. And before starting this company, I used to work for Microsoft. And back then, it was just a couple of years. Satya Nadella had become the CEO, and he made, put one quote all across the office, which was, don't assume, ask. And that is still imprinted in my mind.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
such a beautiful advice.
Yeah, and you said that way more succinctly and better than I did. So thank you for Surprising that. Yeah, don't assume, ask.
Thank
Um,
you for reminding
yeah.
us that advice today. But yeah, this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Sabrina, on behalf of the whole community here. Super, super, super lovely session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This session was sponsored by Manifest, and we'll see you all next year again. Thank you so much.